Our next guest today, wow, I got Mr. Kary Oberbrunner. This guy's in the Wall Street Journal and USA Today. Check it out, guys. Best-selling author. That is absolutely amazing. But what blows me away is this, that he's a best-selling author of over 14 books. And I don't even know how you have the bandwidth to do 14 books, but we're
Well,
going to
that's why
find
that's
out.
why I'm bald. That's why I'm bald, man.
I love that. CEO of Igniting Souls and Instant IP.
Hmm.
And if you don't mind, I would love to just dive into those books. Just a
Yeah.
quick overview on there. But I'm not finished. An award-winning novelist, screenwriter, and investor. It's been featured on books like in articles and publications like Entrepreneur, Forbes, CBS, Fox News, Yahoo, and many others. And check this out. His TED Talk had over 1 million views. Whew, you know what?
Listen, man, I'm getting nervous. Let's jump into content. We'll start serving the people.
You know what? Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, so tell me, outside of everything that we've just spoke, tell me, who are you? And
Mm.
and more importantly, I saw there's the Lord in there. Whose
Oh
are you?
yeah. I'll
Let's
tell
go
you what,
for it.
man. I'll tell you
You
what.
got the keys. Go for it. Go.
Yeah, all right, all right. So first of all, thanks for having me. Your teammate Patrick, I know him. He's a great guy, and I just am somebody who's been blessed by God's grace.
Mm.
Just put it straight out, because when I was 18, 19, 20, very lost guy, suicidal thoughts, depression. The enemy had me where I was addicted to cutting. I was addicted to
Wow.
self-injury, so I wasn't into the drugs, the alcohol, that type of thing. But I just thought, man, life's pointless. I'm mad at God. I think if people look at the world, they can very easily become discouraged. And I started to think, why is God allowing all this stuff in my life? And the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And that was almost my story. But I thought, you know what? If I do take my life and I get up to heaven, because I had trusted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. But
Awesome.
I thought, you know what? God's going to say, look at all the things I had for you planned. Why are you here early? And that was enough to make me say, all right, I'll stick it out another day, another week. And I'm so glad I did, because I got healing and help. I really took my anger that I had inside, and what I ended up doing was I ended up putting it on God, because I grew up as a pastor's kid. I didn't think you could do that. I didn't think you could be mad at God.
Wow.
I thought
Yeah.
you had to come to God all cleaned up. And that's actually a really twisted form of pride, because that means that we think we can fix ourselves,
Mm.
And I realized that there's a certain psalm in the Bible called the imprecatory Psalms, where David's super mad. Like, David is mad. He's like, may you take my enemies and blot them out of the book of life. And, like, I never sang that song in church, may my enemies go to hell. I never had heard that song. I'm joking a little bit, but I thought, how could God call David a man after God, his own heart? And how could he write those real things? So then I really learned that spirituality is tied to authenticity. You see what I'm
Wow.
saying? Like, Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit. So that means spiritually bankrupt. So Jesus, in his famous Sermon on the Mount, basically says, if you realize you're spiritually bankrupt, now you're close to inheriting the earth. You see?
So I don't want to miss that moment right there.
Mm.
Okay. Spirituality, or levels of spirituality, or the depth of spirituality, is tied to authenticity. Can you please open that chasm up?
Yeah. And that's why I had to stop you when you were reading my bio, because that's, everybody likes that stuff. But I mean, this is the good stuff here, where it's
Yeah.
we're talking about God's riches in the word. But so, people Jesus was most against in the scriptures were the Pharisees, the people
Hmm.
who he said were full of dead men's bones, that were whitewashed tombs. So think about this. The one person that Jesus actually is pretty excited about is the woman who washed his feet. Okay. And all the Pharisees are in the room, and they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, it's pretty awkward. Like, what's going on? If he's so smart, like, he should know that this woman is not right. And Simon, I believe, was the gentleman, a Pharisee back, but he said, he starts questioning. And Jesus says, let me tell you a story. One guy was forgiven $10 billion and one guy was forgiven $10. Who do you think loves him more? And the guy's like, probably the guy who's forgiven $10 billion. And Jesus says, he who has been forgiven much loves much. Now, when I heard that story as a kid, I'm like, sweet. That means if I sin a lot, I'll love God a lot. But here's the little kicker. It's not how much you sin, it's how much you know that you sin.
Right.
That's
Right.
deep, man. That's deep. So Jesus isn't saying like if you sin it a lot, a whole bunch, you're gonna love me a lot. Anybody who ever was in God's presence said basically, "Don't kill me." Like Isaiah, woe is me, I'm an unclean man. Like anybody who got a glimpse of God, they were like, "Whoa." Okay, so the point is not that you have to sin a lot. It's you have to know that you sin a lot, and the only way you know you sin a lot is to get in God's presence. Most of us hang around with fellow people, and we're like, well, I'm not that bad, look at that person, I'm not that bad, and we compare ourselves to other people. But if we get into God's presence, then we say, wow, you see.
Yeah.
And then our love begins to grow. So what I had to do is I had to basically get honest with God and take off the masks and say, you know what, I am a pastor. By the way, I was a pastor at the age of 23 and I was still cutting. So think about this. This shows how Satan had me just caught up. I'd preach on Sunday and I'd cut on Monday. That's pretty messed up. But the point is this: I was wrestling, I was struggling, and the way that I got healthy and free was to take all that anger and put it on God. And as I put it on God, guess what? God begins to heal, and God begins to say, you know what? I can handle your anger. I mean, I once had a professor, Shawn, that said, it's selfish to ask God, why me? Like, this was at a Christian place. He's like, it's selfish to say, why me? And I thought to myself, even Jesus on the cross said, why have you forsaken me? You see, it's like we grow up sometimes in church thinking like, you don't tell God your real feelings. You don't say that you're mad at him. You just meet in the afterlife. And I think that that's not real relationship. Real relationship is like, why did that girl break up with me? Why did that business deal go down? Like, what the heck, God? Like, I think that's actually authentic spirituality right there.
Right. So, and I would like to play, I won't say the devil's advocate,
Yeah,
but I would play
go
the
for it, man.
advocate.
Go for it. Yeah.
It's so hard to do that. I mean, where in life are we taught authenticity?
Yeah.
Definitely not in school,
Right.
definitely not in church. You can't
Right.
do it at the workplace. You can't, in fact, it's even in our everyday language, our vernacular. How you doing? Fine. How's it going? Great. It's like
Yeah.
it's nowhere. It's in fact, listening to you now, it's actually discouraged to just
Yeah.
really be 100% authentic. So how did you move? How did you basically actually come to that point?
Yeah. Yeah. I think oh yeah, I'll tell the story. So I went to this really good school. I can say now it's really good. Grace College and Grace Seminary. But I will tell you this, that there was a professor back in the day, and he's not there anymore. But I was in the council I was in the Masters of Divinity for counseling. Okay. And I
Hmm.
thought I was going to be an Air Force chaplain. And they had this one class where the professors would like observe you counseling like from behind a glass window. It sounds kind of wild, but it's like you would have real clients with their permission and they would sign off. I know I'm being observed, and they would see how you would counsel people. And when I counseled people, my professors, one guy said, whoa, 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 something's going on with this guy, Kary. They're like, anytime people talk about pain, this guy goes totally the other way. Like he doesn't approach people with their pain.
Mm.
So he's like, I think, you know what? I think I'm going to fail him. And I never failed class in my life. So this guy's like, I think I'm going to fail this guy because he's not being real. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty bold. So I went privately to him, and he's like, why are you holding back? What are you holding back? And I said, you know what? I'm a cutter. I struggle with self-injury. Okay. And I thought he'd be like, sweet, thanks for sharing that. Let's talk. Let's get some help. I go to my school mailbox and it says, you are not fit to be a counselor, failed. Oh, so the first time in my life I'm real,
Hmm.
I'm not the first time, but like the first time I'm really real, like, with an authority figure, I'm actually shot down by the enemy. Okay. And that was some big stuff because that was like, wow, that's like exactly what Satan does. Fine, you take a little step, I'll show you. So luckily I knew the vice president of the school, and I went to him and I'm like, wow, man, this is crazy. This is what happened. He's like, listen, that guy can't fail you without my signature. He said, I want you to get counseling. We're gonna get you some help, and I think you can graduate, but let's just get this addressed. So I went to counseling, and this is where a lot of healing came out. I married my wife, 5-year anniversary today.
Ah,
Today, yeah. And but she was a counselor. I'm in her office. She's a counselor today, and she helped me kind of work through some stuff. So long story short, this professor, we only found this out 12 months later. He was married. He was sleeping with a married student. Like, he was in his own mess. And I'm not saying he was the enemy, because we wrestle not against flesh and blood,
right, right, right,
but I feel like I could have gone down a really negative path. But then what happened is, it's like an onion. You take down the mask and it's scary as heck, but you get a little freedom, little breakthrough. And like the onion peels kept coming off all the way down to, I thought I was going to be an author because the military rejected me. My whole life has been like this dream rejection, this dream rejection, this dream rejection. But I keep going, and God was building an entrepreneur in me, like legit, right? So anyway, long story short, I write the first three books, book one, book two, book three. None of them really take off. They're okay. I write on Christian topics. They're okay. And I feel like with my fourth book, I feel like God, he didn't talk to me, but I really felt strongly like he said, I want you to write your story about self injury. And I'm like, heck no. I'm like, I'm not writing that book. Because I was a pastor. Now I was a healed pastor,
right.
in Columbus, Ohio, Powell, Ohio. Yeah, Grace Church Powell. And I'm like, I'm not
Mhm.
going to share that, man. Like, I might get kicked out of the church. What the heck? No way. And I felt like God saying, if you don't write that book, you don't have to, but you'll miss out on a big blessing. And I'm like, and I'm always one of these guys where it's like, I like a challenge. So I thought, all right, man, I'm going to like study my past, get into like why I did this. So I wrote a book called Your Secret Name. And it talks about how Jacob got renamed Israel, Saul, Paul. It talks about this whole concept of, you have a birth name and a given name, but God has a secret name. It's Revelation 2:17. The one who overcomes will be given a new name written on a white stone, and no one knows the name except the one who receives it. And so a lot of my struggles and a lot of struggles in the world today are around people's identity. Okay. I'm talking like the good and the bad names. What happens if you're a millionaire and that's your name, your given name, and you lose the money? What happens if your given name is beautiful and you become a burn victim? So what happens is, like, we take on these names that are good and bad, and that becomes our identity, when really God has a secret name for us. And so my secret name is free, Free. And you might say, what is that about? And it's tied to Galatians 5:1. It is for freedom's sake that Christ has set us free. Stop subjecting yourself to a yoke of slavery. And so my whole life was like, people please, people please, people please. That's slavery.
Right.
Now I'm subjected to other people thinking of me. So anyway, God gave me the new name Free, and now I went on record, and if you Google my name, I'm on TV shows talking about self-injury. It's crazy, man.
Wow, wow, wow. That's huge. That's huge. So you talk about another word, okay, which for some reason it's kind of a mist in our everyday culture, our Western culture. I'll just say
Yeah,
Western culture, because when I've been to other places in the world, there's a higher level of transparency and
sure.
authenticity.
Sure.
But for you to do what you have done, and yeah, I now see why we kind of like skipped over all the intros and the accolades,
Yeah, it's all good.
because so transformation, to really come out and to really force the evolution or the transformation, it takes courage.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And it takes courage to say, this is who I am to the
Mm,
world, but more importantly, this is who I am to myself. This is who I am, and I'm coming to God, and God already knows what you need according
yeah,
to the word before you pray. He's just
that's right.
waiting on you. So how do we cross that threshold and find the courage to do that? Because there's so
Yeah.
much in that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I was blessed with a gentleman named Chet Scott. Okay, and
Hmm.
Chet Scott is local, but he talks about two types of pain. Okay. Most people in this world are in chronic pain. So chronic pain is dull, it's behind the scenes, and most people what they do is they medicate their chronic pain.
Okay.
Pornography, alcoholism, gambling, whatever. They just say, I got to escape. I mean, it can be anything. It can be addictive video games, but most people are in chronic pain. And so the only way you get out of chronic pain is to invite acute pain. Acute pain
Wow.
is sharp.
I'm gonna take some notes on that one. Okay.
Acute pain is sharp, it's intentional, it's it hurts a lot. Okay. And so what I did is I actually began inviting acute pain. Now you got to remember, I'm going to use a sports analogy here for a moment,
Sure.
but I'm a publisher now. I publish people's books. But one of the books that I published is Tom Ryan, the head coach of Ohio State wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the Buckeyes head coach. And he wrote a book called Chosen Suffering. Okay. And this is on the same topic. He basically had his son taken from him at the age of 5. His son was freak accident, died. And he's like, man, that is unchosen suffering. I never would have chosen that. That was not my choice. That's horrible. And he was angry at God too. But what's similar with athletes and entrepreneurs and really high performing military, anybody, they actually choose pain. They choose acute pain because think about it. You've seen a lot of these memes on social media, these quotes like, one life or 1 year of going dark with pain
Right. Right. Yeah.
and you can accomplish so much and then you have 20 years of success. Like I'm a big stoic dude. Like I really, I go to these crazy 3 summers in a row, the highest mountains in France. I'm cycling them. I'm like almost 50, man. And I mean, I'm riding the Tour de France routes. Like it's hard, but that's my whole principle in life is like Jim Rohn said this. He said there's two pains in life, weighs ounces and the other tons. It's basically the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. So there's going to be a lot of people in their life that at the end of their life, they have a ton of pain and it's, I should have done this. I should have done that. Why didn't I take that seriously? I should have done. I, on the other hand, say, you know what? I'm going to jump in and that is painful, but I'm going to invite it. And the success and the beauty is amazing.
It,
So
it,
yeah,
yeah,
go
that's
for
right.
it.
I
Well,
mean,
I mean, I grew up as a kid with a severe stuttering problem. I'm
yeah.
talking so freaked out. I had panic attacks, and that led to the suicidal thoughts. I'm like, dude, I can't even talk without people being making fun of me. So I had to work through all that. That was a thorn in the flesh, man. The enemy held that over me for years, and it was like, why can't you speak? Why, what is your problem? It's resurfaced as a senior in high school. I was I went out for the play, because my friends were in it and I like stood up to give my lines and everyone thought I forgot them, but I was stuttering and they're all laughing at me. And I said, screw it. And I ran off the stage and I said, I'm never speaking again publicly, God. It's like, and then I became, guess what? Then God has a sense of humor. He puts me as a
Yeah.
pastor, but I still am nervous. I TEDx, but I'm still nervous. Like, it's just interesting, man. Like, anytime I have something in my life where I'm like, I'm scared, I'm not going to do that, that's like God saying, all right, there's your assignment. Next one.
So check it out though. The challenge is that most people are pain averse.
That's right.
But what you're saying is there is pain.
All the time.
You've just grown numb to it,
Yeah.
and you've just learned how with negative reinforcement you are still going through the same cycle. It
Yeah.
might not be climbing Mount Everest, it could be drugs, it could be
Yeah.
cocaine. So the secret to being the winner is choose your pain. Is that what I'm
Choose your
hearing?
pain, man. Yeah. And listen, it's not even, yeah, it's now not in a sadistic way, but it's now inviting the pain.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, if somebody comes along and says, "Hey, Kary, you should consider this," I'm thinking, that's too small. Like, not in an arrogant way, man, but like I look at people like David in the Bible with Goliath and Daniel and Esther and all these crazy people, and I'm like, you know what? I love what Henry Blackaby says. This is a really cool quote. He says, "Most people are not doing anything in their life that unless God shows up, they will fail." And I'm like, dang.
Can you repeat that,
Yeah,
please?
yeah, yeah. Most people Christians, you name, most people are not doing anything in their life. They're not attempting anything in their life that unless God shows up, they will fail. Meaning they are only doing what is within their capacity. Okay. And so like I got some crazy dreams. I've always had crazy dreams. And I read John Eldridge as a young man because his book called The Sacred Romance is so good, but he basically says that most people will kill their heart because they kill their heart because that's where they feel. And if you kill your heart, nobody can hurt you, but no, John Maxwell says nobody can help you. You see? So like most people in life, they're like, you know what? It's too tough to be fully alive. So I'm going to insulate and isolate and put so many things around me that I don't have to feel.
But not knowing that the pain is a part of the process.
That's right. They're actually weakening themselves.
Right.
They're actually sabotaging their success. I mean, I teach at Cedarville University too, and I love these kids. They're awesome. But the young generation is different than us because they grew up with phones. And so here's what they're worried about. I'm not going to try anything. I'm not going to try that free throw. I'm not going to try that entrepreneurial dream. Why? Because someone's got their camera and they're going to capture me and put it up.
Whoa.
And they're going to put it up everywhere and everybody's going to laugh. Like we didn't have that. You and me didn't have that,
Right.
Kurt.
Right.
You're just
Right.
like, I don't care if I mess up. I don't care if I miss it. Nobody's going to know. Well, now everybody's life is recorded. And so what it does is it creates this fear.
Yeah. And coupled by the fact that our, and I might get in trouble with this because you are in education, but
Oh, yeah,
that
that's okay.
that our educational system perpetuates the fear of failure through the through yeah
Yeah, I teach entrepreneurship and I tell these young
yeah
people,
yeah yeah
I'm
yeah
like, you better fail. Like, I hope you're failing, right?
yeah. It's actually failure is congruent with the real way of learning.
That's right.
That's how you learn how to walk. That's how you learn how to ride a bike. That's how
That's
you learn
right.
so many things. When you built a tree house or you did this, you failed. When you race as a kid, you failed. And then all of a sudden, school says failure's bad. Now
Yes.
we become risk adverse at such a
Oh,
young
that's good.
age,
That's good.
and now greatness is in the failure. In fact, I was reading, and I was reading, watching Google and reading Google, and
Yeah,
we all
yeah.
know Google's right in 2025, right? Is that the average millionaire has filed for bankruptcy 3 point.
I agree with that.
It's right there, yeah.
Wow.
So wow. So speak
Yeah.
speak to the process.
Yeah.
And you're right, because on social media they all see the finished product, they all
Oh my
see
God.
the beautiful brisket, they all see the person
Yeah.
weighing 145 pounds and
Yeah.
chiseled, they all see
Right.
the finished product, but they don't see the process. Please, if you could speak to that.
Yeah. Listen, man, I see it. I see, like today I was on Instagram and there's this young guy that he's walking with God. I respect him, but he's half my age and probably 100x my income, you know? And you could easily be like, what the heck? What is that guy doing? And we live in this world. Somebody said this isn't my own thought. It's really a good one though. They said we've always asked, is the neighbor's grass greener? But the problem today is we have access to billions of backyards because of social media. So now our neighbor isn't just my next door neighbor. Now my neighbor is billions of other neighbors, and I look at their grass, their body, their income, and the comparison is called the thief of joy. So everybody's, what they're doing is they're running everyone else's race.
Hmm.
And when you're running everyone else's
Hmm.
race, you're not looking ahead. In fact, remember that a few years ago, it was Michael Phelps, and he was in this final race, and they show him, and he's doing the butterfly or whatever stroke, and they show his competitor, and he's slightly behind Michael Phelps, but he's looking at Phelps like that. So he's literally not looking at the target; he's looking at Phelps. And that's dangerous in sports. That means you're going to lose. Anytime you take your eye off the ball, and anytime you start comparing, you're basically saying, God, you're wrong, man. I'm in the wrong life. And there's this term in counseling, you probably heard about this. It's called disassociation. Okay, so this is a true story. When victims are being harmed, like we're talking repeated abuse, there's a psychological term called disassociation. And what it means is that they literally leave their body. Because if they were in their body and present, okay, the pain would be too much. They're being raped, they're being beat up. So what they do is they disassociate mentally. It's a coping mechanism God put in your body to like survive. The problem is that most people are disassociating all day
Yeah.
with their lives. They're
Yes.
basically like, my life sucks. My life isn't cool. So I'm gonna actually like pretend I'm somebody else. I'm gonna like go somewhere else. And you can't affect change when you're not present.
It's so what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, because my ego's not that big,
Yeah, I get you.
is, is that they create an avatar
Mm,
and then they live in the avatar.
mm,
The challenge in that, and in my own struggles as well, is that somewhere, and I'm not a psychiatrist or a therapist, but I've learned there's somewhere in my consciousness he's still back there
oh yeah,
and he's still feeling the pain. And
yeah,
it's like you can actually suppress as much as you want. 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, man, it comes up, it comes
oh
out,
yeah,
and it
oh
wants
yeah.
to live. You know what? It wants to finish the story almost. Like,
Mm,
I need to finish this story. And
yep.
oftentimes in my life is that I had to focus and fight through repentance and forgiveness.
Oh, that's good.
So if
Yeah,
you wait, please, if you could speak to that,
yeah,
if it's anywhere in there, please let's hit that, and then we
yeah,
can rock that on home.
yeah. I think you're right. I mean, they've said that bitterness is drinking poison and hoping someone else will die. Like unforgiveness or bitterness, right? So, in other words, yeah, that's another place Satan wants to mess you over is say that I can't forgive. And we just saw this Charlie Kirk thing, and for his wife to say, I forgive this young man. I mean, you saw it, man. I got
Mhm.
chills. Oh my gosh. The world's not used to that. In fact, Donald Trump comes up after and he says, "You know what? I can't forgive my enemies." I mean, it was shocking, this
Mhm.
widow who just got her husband publicly murdered says, "I forgive the murderer." And
Oh,
then the president of the United States stands up and says, "Well, I don't forgive my enemies." And it's like,
yeah.
you know what? Fine. We're not all there yet. I get it. But when you don't forgive somebody else, you're putting yourself above God. You're saying
Wow.
you're saying, God, I know you have it in you to forgive that person through Christ's blood. But you know what?
Mhm.
I'm bigger than that.
Mm.
I'm better than that.
Mm.
I have a better superiority than you, God.
Mm. Wow.
That's some pride right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I believe, just listening to you this short time. First of all, I'm just like blown away.
It's all good.
I love your humility, and I love your direct approach.
Mm,
But I could dare to say that traversing through the cutting, that
right.
there was a moment where you had to take yourself off the hook and forgive yourself.
Oh yeah, I
When
like what you're saying. I
yeah,
like what you're saying. Yeah.
when the professor wanted to kick you off of out of the program,
Yeah.
there was a moment where you had to go through and forgive him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there
So
is actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
I saw him at the YMCA about a
Mm,
year later, and I actually talk about this in the book where, I could have ignored him. I could have I could have hit him, whatever.
mhm,
But instead, I recognized God allowed me to see him as broken because remember,
mhm,
he had committed adultery, like,
mhm,
with this
mhm,
other student. And I saw him for the fact that Satan was also the thief who came to steal, kill, and destroy for him. In other words, that's what I think gives us compassion for other people. I'm not saying like it's easy, but like I love what one of the Greek wise people he said, be kind to everyone because we are all fighting a harsh battle. Like it's not like the mailman down the road, the cashier, it's not like they got it easy. It's not even like the billionaire that you see on Instagram has it easy.
mhm.
Like, if you rejoice in other people's suffering, I'm one of these people who's like, okay, God, don't let me get there because you'll humble me. Like I was talking to a friend the other day and I said, you know what? You know what keeps me humble is the fact that if I don't humble myself, God will humble me. And I said, I'd rather take my own approach than it's not good to get so prideful where God has to humble you, because that's where I was, honestly. That
Yeah.
self-injury thing,
Yeah.
that self-injury thing. Because check this out. This is a deep thought here. I don't encourage you to go up to people who struggle with depression and suicide and say, "Hey, you're prideful." I don't encourage you to do that. But I one time unpacked with a young lady because she was so fixated on herself for how bad she was. Okay? And I say, "You know what? That is the other side of pride. Think about it. If I'm so caught up in how bad I am and how horrible I am and how depressed I am, me. That's what the enemy wants. The enemy wants you to either have pride for how good you are or shame for how bad you are. But both objects of focus is self.
Let me be just blunt for
Yeah.
a second here.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is so foreign.
That's true.
It's
Yeah.
so abstract.
Crazy.
And I believe, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the reason why it's so foreign and abstract to believers and non believers right now, because people's mouths are open, you can
Yeah.
talk about this freely, is because the main ingredient in our walk with Christ is authenticity.
Mm.
And you were able to approach God from an authentic perspective, and he was able to deal with you, not
Yeah.
coming from a cerebral, not the
Yeah.
mind, but from the heart.
Yeah.
We are not taught to have authentic, transparent conversations with ourselves, let alone with God. So what
Yeah.
I'm hearing you say is that is the secret to humility.
Mm.
That is the secret to brokenness. That is the secret to walking out this walk, is that once I'm authentic in God and I can just show myself to Christ,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
him, it opens up a whole new paradigm. So
Yeah.
if you could go back now,
Mm.
because there are people out there who are stuck and
Yep.
they've tried therapy and they're
Yep.
stuck. They've
Yep.
tried drugs, they've tried cutting, they've tried
Yeah.
porn, they've tried everything, and they're doing all the right things
Yeah.
through our programmed Western culture. We're doing all the right things, but
Yeah.
we're so wrong. We're so broken. If you can go back to that kid that's cutting with
Yeah.
your mind now, what would you tell him?
Mm. I tell him, so there's 4 words that changed my life.
Okay.
I believe in you. I believe in you. And I'll tell you why that changed my life, because I didn't believe in me. And actually, that's one of the things God used to change my life was a stranger I didn't even know. Long story short, heard about me through my mom and wrote me a check for $500 as a poor kid. But he said, even more than the money, he said, God told me he can't afford you to not be on his team, and I'm supposed to give you this money. And he told me that he believes in you and I believe in you. And it was like that was it, man. Belief.
Belief.
Belief. So I think my encouragement as we end the show would be, have your listeners, like you said, you dropped a powerful word where you said you had to forgive yourself. I think you have to believe in yourself too, because God believes in you. The fact that you have breath and pulse says he's not done with you yet. So that tells me that he still believes in you.
That's huge. That's
Sweet.
powerful. God believes in me and I believe in me, and I don't need the external to validate the internal.
Man, when you got that, you're bulletproof. And I'll tell you what, if you really believe that, you attract all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. Like people
Yeah.
are like, I don't know what this guy's drinking, but I want to follow that guy or that lady. I don't know if they can do a business deal, but I'm, you know, people, Johnny Cash walked the line, watch it, rewatch it. He
Mhm.
auditions, and rather than singing somebody else's song, the guy says, I want you to tell me what song you would sing, and he opens up his mouth and sings a real song, and the guy's like, you got the deal.
So much information, so much content, too much for a half hour. There are people that maybe want to reach out to you for consulting, for speaking engagements, for whatever.
Sure.
How can they get in contact?
I think igitingsouls.com is pretty cool. You can
Okay.
see that. But yeah, just Google me and reach out and say, hey, and thanks for all you're doing, Shawn. This is awesome.
Kary, Thank you. I had zero expectations. I just wanted you to just speak your authentic self, because this is what I'm all about. Thank you for the courage to share your story. Thank you for the boldness of not giving a crap what people think about the process. And thank you for correcting me for focusing too much on the product and not the process of you going through the evolution in Christ, with Christ, through Christ, by Christ.
Awesome.
Thank you. God bless you. Keep winning, and we'll connect soon.
Take care, my friend. We'll see ya.